Building a strong Black nation requires strategies. We want to share those strategies really, but statistics, of course, does show now that there is no developed Black nation. That sounds quite scary. Let me use your word. So what would you share as strategies that you think would help?
So I think that we should be focused on those virtues and values that will help us compete with other nations of the world. And one of those virtues is independent thinking. I think that a lot of us, well, quite a number of people in the world are not independent thinkers. People still listen to influencers, they read things on the news, they follow, popular voices. I think that one of those virtues that we need to develop as a people, even in our children, is the ability to look at things in the news, to hear what people are not saying, to look at what people are not showing you, and be able to process information and come up with your own independent view. I speak to people all the time, and especially young people, you can tell that this person, all of the views that this person is expressing is gotten from either Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, or it's just all over the place. So I think that having an independent mind is a very strong virtue that we need to develop. A lot of professionals who go abroad to study, they just study things in school, and when it comes to application in my own profession, I find it very disturbing that people just copy things from even some of our laws in Nigeria, they just copy it and paste it here without any independent thinking about what do we actually need, where's the originality. So I think independent thinking will be my own first virtue that I will have, because our purpose is to change the thinking of the Black man through the message of evolution. So if a lot of people, around us can have independent thoughts, their own independent thoughts, I think it's going to help us to develop as a people.
That's very instructive, actually. Yeah. Independent thinking. Okay, probably we'll be talking about how that can be developed, in people, because it's easy to say that that's the virtue, but how then do we get to the point?
Okay, I think we can get to that point because this is a generation where people's attention span is very short. So I tell people reading books is a way for you to have access to a lot of information, and then you can have the time to meditate on it and then come up with your own independent conclusion. Is reading books, because social media, you're just swiping through videos. You cannot really make up your mind about the things you see on screen. Reading books, sitting down privately in a place to meditate, I think it's one of the things that we find very difficult to do in this part of the world. There is noise everywhere. There are parties everywhere. Even if you go to parties, you can't talk to the next person because the DJ is playing the music so loud. So I think that our minds are filled with too much images, too much sound. We don't have the quietness of the spirit and mind to process information and then come to our own conclusion. So I think it's reading, meditating, and maintaining a regular quiet time.
Okay, so all of those three you've mentioned now help to develop independent thinking. So
yes.
What other strategies would you then, share as being like leading us on a pathway to develop?
I think the next one is staying power. Staying power. I think in this part of the world, we also need to develop, a staying power. To say that this is one thing I'm staying with, and I'm going to continue with it for a very long time. Nations that came to Africa to colonize Africa, they had staying power. They left their countries, went over the seas, they were inside the boats, some of them were brought down by sickness. They still didn't stop. They still came over to Africa, colonized our forefathers, and then took all of those resources to their country to develop it. That's some staying power. I think beyond us demonizing colonialism and imperialism is to look at what are the virtues these people have. How did they come from those far places to come and then colonize or set up structures? That's some staying power, man. Let's give it to them and stop saying, oh, they are evil. We should, if we look at it, there is a staying power. Because now you have young people nowadays, they want everything to be set before they come into it. They want
The soft life.
the soft life. That's the word. So I think that somehow there is that generational gap. Nobody was able to pass on to us the staying power to stay at something and continue to build. Rather, we're more interested in the entertainment, the noise, what brings us quick pleasure, the ability to wait and build something consistently. I don't find it. I don't know how many businesses in Nigeria is up to 200 years. I don't know how many.
I'm not sure I've heard of any.
Institutions.
200.
Yeah. In other countries,
homegrown businesses actually.
In other countries, you see buildings that are 15, 19, 17, 80 something. That's some staying power. People build things to last, and they just continue. But in our generation, once things don't work, just jump to the next thing. If the marriage is not working, jump to the next thing. If the business is not working, jump to the next.
Right. Thank you for those thoughts. So you had talked about independent thinking, staying power. These are like tough call actually, because thinking about it in this generation, it seems like it's all other to achieve. But these are very, very important virtues to cultivate.
The last one is time.
Ooh,
respect for time.
Talk about that.
Respect for time. That one. You fight your family members, you fight your friends, you fight church members. Just if you are somebody who likes to keep to time, you are going to be the enemy of a lot of people in Africa.
But do you think it's a cultural thing?
Yeah, I think it's a cultural thing. In other places, a bus that is coming, a public bus that is coming to pick you will tell you 3:34, as in they'll say 3:34, not 3:30, not 3:40. 3:34, and that bus will actually be there. So I would just encourage people out there who believe that, timeliness is one of those virtues. Don't be discouraged, even if you're in Africa or you're in any, developing countries. Timeliness is a very great virtue.
Yeah, thank you very much for those thoughts. So that helps us to understand that, to create the developed nation that we all desire, these virtues are salient. The virtue of independent thinking, the virtue of timeliness, and the second one was...
the third one was staying power.
Staying power, which is really, really important, just helps to bring everything together. So with this being said, we do believe that we're on a pathway to getting it right once we begin to consciously cultivate all that is needed to get these virtues into our lives and into our institutions.
Yeah, into our private lives first, then it transcends
into institutions. Right, thank you.